I'll have y'all know I've never read this series before. This is my first time reading The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. And I have this super pretty edition with the cover. I'm going to say right off the bat, I was reading these reviews, kind of skimming them before I started the book to see what it was about. And only 50 pages in, I can tell that this doesn't deserve a 1-star review. Like if I wanted to be the most petty I could be, I could drop it to a 4 because this book is actually really amazing. Several different angles. And to start with, like, the writing is so good. And I'm not talking about the creativity, the prose, or the plot, stuff like that. Like, there's no name of the wind stuff here. I'm just talking about the pacing, the flow, the emotion, the descriptions of the emotions, because when you have a lot of characters in the cast, I feel like it gets harder and harder to differentiate between them. But this book does such a good job in showing how each of them feel different emotions. It's very comfortable to read. If I had to say something, I guess the chapters are a bit way too long for me because I like shorter chapters because I only have certain times to read. I can't sit down and just read freely. So shorter chapters means that I'm more likely to start because I have more of a finishing point. Even then, it's not a big deal because on the other hand, the longer chapters you have, the more of the book you tend to read before you realize it. But it's very good at detailing each character and each of their lives. Like we have Gainsey, the charismatic leader, Ronan, the hot-headed, impulsive one, Adam, the penny-pinching overthinker, and Noah, who honestly, I was wondering why he was even in the book for like 3/4 of the way. And I don't know if he was removed at all until that point, if it would have made an actual difference. And then we have, of course, Blue, who's not my favorite because I feel like a lot of time is wasted in the beginning. Nobody likes the not like other girls trope. Nobody does. So why do we keep doing it? I think it's only to make self-inserts feel like being different is attractive. Like, I think it would have been better if the book started with her just already being friends with the group. It didn't have to take so long to like get her into the story. Because other than that, she wasn't really doing much except for on the outside of the story. It's strange. And the family situation, like there's a weird thing going on there. There's too many people in that house to start. There's too many people in my house. Okay. The tarot reading. I love that scene. It was super intense, because tarot is very personal for each person. It's very instinctive. But I feel like it was a bit too specific in this way. Of course, it's a fantasy book. It's fiction. It's paranormal. It's romance. It's all this. It's all this awesome stuff combined. And I guess the fact that they're psychics mean they have a bit more leeway to play with stuff. But me personally, I hate psychics. I cannot stand the concept because if you think about it now, all the psychics we have are just bogus big time. And which sucks because it's a huge part of my life. And for people like that, I don't know. And to see it in fiction, to say, that they have real psychic powers, it's weird to me. But you don't need to be psychic to do tarot, okay? You just need to use your instinct. Like, for instance, the 5 of Pentacles cards. 5s are notorious for, conflict. All the numbers have their own meaning, right? So 5s is trouble in paradise. And Pentacles, at the most basic form, you can just say money. So by looking at this card alone, and if it's for Adam, you can say, hey, you have money problems. And that's about where you can go with this card. And if you want to get deeper, you can call it insecurity. That, when he gets home, where you're supposed to be safe, and it's not safe, that's a huge problem to your psyche because you don't have any security there. So it is about being down on luck with your money, but this idea of they just threw in because of a woman, what does that even mean? How do you get that from the 5 of Pentacles? What? Because of a woman. That could be because of his mom, because of Blue. That's the only 2 women he knows. And they don't really contribute to him being like that. I guess let's talk about some of the characters now. Honestly, I like all of them. It's hard to pick a favorite because they all have their own life stories, just like everybody in real life. You never know what somebody's going through. And they may look like somebody, but, deep down, who their circumstance in life is highly determined by outside factors and whatever, but who they are inside is really hard to change. And I mean, we can start with Richard, who hates his name Richard, and everybody calls him Gainsey, of course. But poor Richard, he has this huge amount of pressure on him that no one empathizes with because he's supposed to be the leader, and leaders can't show weakness. Even though everyone knows he's not the strongest because of Ronan, it opens the door to kind of underestimate his strength. And I think his character is amazing personality-wise. Like, he might be my favorite because his way of thinking is very balanced, and it's open-minded, but yet it's also grounded. You need both. You can't. The people who are always too much of one or the other are those people that come across as arrogant. Everyone knows that they can rely on him. And when something goes wrong, he's always there to fix it. Like, they call him first before they call the police. I mean, they even comment a lot of the times, like, oh, there's only one person who can fix it, and he's not here. And Gainsey is obsessed with finding meaning in his life. And that's something I really relate to, because I feel like time is our biggest enemy here. And everybody wants to feel like their life isn't just meaningless. You know what I mean? He accepts people for who they are, because feeling genuine emotion is something that he struggles with. He's a people pleaser because he's been raised in this lifestyle where every interaction is kind of superficial. And when you have all these people around you who are just like vultures, you don't know who to trust, who's your friend. It's kind of like the curse of beauty. I know this is a weird angle here, okay, but trust me, it has a point. When somebody is like super beautiful, you don't know who's genuine or not because people hit on you constantly, and they don't know if you're doing it because your looks or because they like you. So you get to this point where you never know who to trust, and you just get really immune to it. It's kind of like this, okay? He has this way of trying to get what he wants because he's been raised where money gets you what you want. And that works with the same kind of people because they're only interested in what you can give them. So he has this problem of unintentionally offending people because they don't want anything from him. And he has trouble understanding that because somebody has always wanted something from him. The gun scene was super intense. Like, this grown man has a gun in this kid's face. And you could feel this tension of Gainsey thinking that his life could be over in the blink of a second. And for what? I love the fact how the journal comes into play in this scene. Because even though it's something that he loves so much, the thought hits him that he can use it to save his life. And the first thought that comes in his mind is, I can get a new one. It's replaceable. He's not. And he almost died there on the side of a road in the ditch. I mean, that was super intense. And it pulled at my heartstrings a lot. There's also this weird little side note about how he has this affinity for death because of his brush with allergies of wasps at a younger age. And I feel you there, because wasps terrify the shit out of me. One just gets near me and I die. Okay, Richard, so I understand you. I mean, even there, his friendship with Ronan, even though Ronan was so angry, he was like, what the hell are you doing? And he came in and he killed the wasp because he knew how dangerous it was to Gainsey. Like, that was a good scene. But it was also him contemplating death. And the death card did come up, and he was quick to correct them when people mention that they're always afraid of death card in tarot. When really, it's not somebody dies. It's the signification of death itself, as in something dies in order to be reborn, or something happens to where you end up with a new outlook on life because it was such an intense moment for you. So he does carry this intensity about death and living throughout the book. That makes him want to live a very intense life. Now let's move on to Ronan, our sensitive, secret sensitive, chainsaw loving Ronan. Who is awesome. He's perfect. I mean, people love Ronan for a reason. He's super protective, and I just simply love him because he doesn't overthink it. He just does what's supposed to be right in the moment. And that's the kind of people I want around. He stands up for what he believes in, but he doesn't do it in a douchey way. He's also super kind. And people don't know that until they get to know him. And he only wants to know people who are worthy of getting to know him. I mean, just like in Adam's scene. Who else fucking cried, okay? I fucking cried on a book. because it was so hard to watch what was happening to Adam at that time and to realize that it was happening all the time. And Ronan knew what was going to happen if Adam got out of that car. And we were all desperately saying, like, oh, come on, Ronan was right there. Come back, Ronan. And then, like, when I saw headlights, I just wanted to cry because Ronan had come back to protect him. And we knew he would because Ronan can be depended on like that. Like, I loved him at that point. At that point, Ronan could do no wrong. Even when they made him out to be like, oh, he's being mean to Blue because she's our main character. No, he's being cautious to an outsider who is just suddenly part of somebody's group who's been together for years. There's nothing wrong with that. He wants to make sure that this person, as the protector of the group, isn't going to be a danger to the group. And I'm not talking about like punches or whatever, but if she can somehow drive a wedge between the group, as in between Adam and Gansey or whatever, and that could split the group up entirely, she's a danger. But I knew Ronan was coming for Adam. I was just like, go, go, go. Everyone looks up to him too, and he gives the group their strength. He makes them look intimidating from the outside. I don't have a lot to say about him because he's just so simply that. And it's great to be simple sometimes. But I really do love his character and all of his choices. There's also some hints about a secret that never got revealed, and I think they pushed him sort of to the background in this because Gansey took over the main plot with his king thing and just introducing the group and all of this, so they didn't have room to have Ronan's side quest thing going on, which I come to find out is on purpose because of the sequel. And at least twice things have happened to where he had saved their lives. Well, like Gansey, for instance, trying to teach him how to fight has saved his life when he had that gun pointed at him. Noah, I'm kind of annoyed with Noah because, I mean, it's not even his fault. I accidentally had it spoiled for me when I was looking around at like book information. Somebody spoiled it without even a spoiler tag or nothing. So I don't know if it made it worse or not each time he entered the scene because in the back of my mind, I already knew his secret. So that was kind of frustrating to me because I didn't know if it was meant to be a bigger surprise or if we were meant to figure it out on our own. Adam is likable because he's the most relatable. He has the least amount of money, but he has the most pride. He works hard for his living in secret. And I'm sure everyone was with me when they wanted to yell, stop being stubborn and just leave. Because he stands by his principles. No matter how often Gansey offered his help, Adam felt like he couldn't take it because then he would owe Richard for the rest of his life and he'd be owned by him. And like I feel like Gansey doesn't feel this way according to his thoughts in the book. But at the same time, it's easy to see how Adam would think that because Richard has this obsession with things. He doesn't want to be one of Gansey's things and even says he likes to have all his stuff in one spot. Now, I personally, compared to Gansey and Ronan, a lot of people have Adam selected as their favorite, and I don't see how that is compared to Ronan and Gansey. Like, don't get me wrong, in the beginning he was very interesting because he was the most perceptive. When everybody else was doing stuff, we had insight to what he was thinking about, and he would show us what he thought each of the characters were thinking. So the book often used him as like a social connection between group members when Gansey is too oblivious to his point of view. So this makes Adam very empathetic to us. He just wants people to see him for who he is and how hard he's worked, and not that he's had everything handed to him. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just feel like a lot of people don't care about that stuff as much as people think they do. At least, not the normal, non-judgmental kind of people. Or at least maybe the older you get, people stop caring about it. Because money becomes an issue to everyone. But he has to understand that his friends care about him. That they don't just want the right to say, I told you so. And he's so afraid of that. And his situation is the worst. Adam should know better than to think that that's what they want. And he even says, I just want to help. So it comes down between staying with an abusive family and receiving help. I guess I don't understand the intensity of his pride. So Adam started out as one of the best, but by the end, for some reason, I started liking him less and less and less because of his choices. And I have a feeling that it was set up on purpose like that to try and get them apart. Because I think he even ended up moving out of the group at the end and not staying where the others stayed. Which I'll get to more on that in a minute. So a really good theme of this story is that sometimes dreams are just meant to stay dreams. Meaning that it's good to go on adventures and experience things and to enjoy the spirit of being young and on an endeavor, so you have something to look back on proudly and to remember in the future. You don't want regrets like that evil teacher guy. What was his name again? Well, yes, he's the main villain of this story. He's one of those villains that you can sympathize with. Up until a point. Until the point where, you start trying to kill kids, then that ride stops. I love the idea how this book starts out as like a mystery between a small group setting on a hometown adventure, and it ended up being about an old jaded teacher who was jealous of kids who do what he could never do. It surprises me because I hate books where like adults are the main. Well, I hate books where the main characters are kids or teenagers and the enemies are adults, and they act like adults are stupid and jaded and just don't care. I hate those kind of books. But in this one, it's explained thoroughly it's explained very well about how he remembers what it was like to be like that, to have that kind of feeling of when the world was still unopened and somewhere to adventure and whatnot, and not being tied down by his life now and his regrets and his situation and his dreams being crushed. I mean, I feel like that's a very strong theme, and it makes me feel sadness for him. How different it used to be from his depressing life now compared to when he used to be bright-eyed and happy. But of course, the whole Noah thing, I mean, he was just a dick when he was in school to begin with, which is probably why he could never achieve what he thought he could achieve. And they throw in that whole part with Noah and his girlfriend, as if they needed any more nails in that kind of coffin. Now, granted, I don't care too much about romance stuff, so I feel like this book was marketed as a romance, but I was very pleased to find out that there was not very much of it. Because if I wanted romance, I would just read romance books. But I had no idea a girl was even in this book before I started reading it. But I know there always has to be a girl for, self-inserts and girl readers and whatnot. You can't just have a book about all men. We can't do that this time, this age. Kiss and die scenario stuff doesn't make sense to me at all. Because if that's all you have to do, then it should be pretty easy. She's not supposed to kiss Richard. She has no interest in Richard. She's with Adam. Okay. Problem solved. But even if we ignore that completely, it doesn't make sense because this hardly comes up at all. It's a prophecy in the beginning, like the book advertises. It's going to play an important part. But it never happens. And I kind of love that. Because, at the same time, do we need that? If we don't really need that. It suggests Gansey is going to be her true love. But this is high school. There are no true loves here. I don't even want to think about some of the people I dated, air quote, dated in high school. Gansey only knows her because she and Adam are a thing to begin with. And if it's meant to be important in the sequel, then it shouldn't be a blurb in this book. Maybe it was forced upon the author. Like if you're writing a YA, your agent or your manager or whatever is going to say, hey, you have to put some kind of romance in this book. Okay. My favorite part is the dynamic, if you haven't figured that out already. And it shines in the one-on-one situations. You can see them grow closer because of how they talk to each other, how they express what they're feeling, how they handle it. It's kind of a really slow pacing though. Like the priority of this book is definitely the character growth and their situations in life. The background plot is in the background, and they eventually find clues that lead to happen, but they find it really slowly over time. And I was incredibly invested in that part too. Like I wanted to be in on this mystery so badly. I wanted to read that journal and be like, what the heck have you found out is going on in this town? But I think it's cleverly done because I think we're meant to feel how he feels when it comes to this. It's you want something so bad, but yet it's so slow to come to you. And you try and you can't find any clues. You make no progress. You get slowed down by responsibilities. To get so obsessed with finding something that you need and you just want something that could break it. I've seen a lot of people complain in reviews that like they have a problem with that they don't understand the reason why they're pursuing this king, that it wasn't made clearly or whatever. And I'm like, are we even reading the same book? It says very early on that Gansey is obsessed with it because he wants to make a name for himself, finding a meaning in life through discovery. Something that's genuinely his own. And he he is envious of Adam in this way. Adam has everything because he's made it on his own. And Gainty wants to know there's more out there than just social graces and etiquette and doing what you're told, living your life the way you're supposed to. So all of his friends that think he's this super awesome leader, he is actually envious of all of them for their own reasons. Ronan has the strength to do what he wants. There's this part when like he's driving down the road and he's thinking, oh, if I was Ronan, I would be able to break this speed limit, but I'm not. I have to follow the rules because that's who I am. And then there's Adam, of course, who has this pride about wanting everything done on his own. And Gainty doesn't understand that because he can just have what he wants whenever he wants it. So this search is important to him because it's something that he can't just have and he wants. He has to find it. And Adam simply just wants the wish part of it because whoever finds it gets granted a wish. And we know Adam has this thought in the back of his head that maybe he can have what the others have when it comes to money, and then his situation would increase. He wants to be on equal level with Gainty and have what he has. It's that situation where the grass is always greener on the other side. It's like, yeah, money won't make everything better, but it would definitely improve some areas of your life. Why do people like Adam so much? So I think the only reason they made Adam freak out like that in the end, Richard has to be in game for Blue, apparently, according to this prophecy. So they're going to do whatever it takes to pull Adam and her apart, even if that means turning Adam into a dick. Because at the end of the book, it happened so fast, I almost didn't understand exactly what happened. But I understood that Adam was doing something that went against the group. Or that was kind of selfish, should we say? I don't know for sure. But it made him look bad. And I think the only reason they did that is because they wanted to intentionally pull him and Blue apart, or pull him away from the group so she could get closer to Richard and there would be more drama for the romance that's supposed to happen. So, I mean, that's it. That's my review of The Raven Boys. I thought it was amazing. This could easily be a 5-star read for me. I could go on and on about how much I love this book. But for the sake of time, I won't do that. Now, I have an issue because I want to read the sequel so badly, but this is a special edition. The cover is only for this edition, this book, this number. There's not one that exists yet for the sequel. So if I want to read the sequel, I have to buy a mismatching cover. And you know how much that's gonna pain me. Anyway, I've been slow on reviews. I haven't been reading as much as I should, because I'm focused on some other creative stuff. And there are some books where I read and I've read them and I don't have enough opinion to make a review on. I might read a book and say, okay, it was good or it was okay. I wouldn't know how to review it. I mean, I guess I could do short bursts of just, every book. It's rare to find a book like that I really enjoy almost every aspect and have something to say about it. So I just wanted to explain why I haven't been doing a lot of reviews. Anyway, I really enjoyed this book, as you could tell, and I hope you enjoyed this review. Why do people not like it? Why are there so many negative reviews on it? Is it because of its YA genre? Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed.